tonight's meeting. Today's Monday, July 13th, and the time now is 6:07. And I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023, by resolution number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website and designated posting place 24 hours prior to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of the town's general guidelines for public comment at open meetings and public hearings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are 2 public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first is limited to items on the agenda. The second public comment opportunity allows any subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. If you have comments regarding the public hearing, comments will be taken during that time. Melissa, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Cartwright.
Here.
Trustee Crane.
Here.
Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, July 13th, 2026, and you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Please join me in a moment of silence for the pilot who died fighting the Gold Mountain Fire. Thank you very much for your time. Please stand and join me with Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic which advances one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again for your time. We'll move on to review and approve agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
I'd like to pull resolution number 40-R-2026 from the agenda.
40.
Yes. D. Yes, D.
All right. And with that, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Melissa.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. We have an agenda for this evening's meeting. Next is our town manager report. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. You have my report. I just wanted to add 2 things. Some questions came up about the ball fields over at the grade school and the maintenance of them. Traditionally, the town has used those and programmed our sports, but this year the school district didn't allow that because of the drought. So any questions or concerns that anybody has about the fields should be directed to the school district to see what they have, and we will reach out to them, but just so people know that we're not using the fields this summer. The other thing is we finally got our grant signed through the state for the underpass. And as you recall, last week, we hired our construction manager. So we hope to very soon get that construction management project out. So we'll be starting later this fall. So we'll be building an underpass at 66 to connect our police station, fire station, new library with the rest of town. So really excited to let you know that finally got signed, because I've been putting in my report, we're close, but we finally got all the signatures on it. So that's all I have.
Questions or comments for Helen tonight? Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on. Tonight we have 3 informational items. The first is probably the most important, I would say, that's for those people in the room today. I'm going to turn the floor over to our police chief, Brent Newbanks. Sir, you have the podium. Or Officer Cooper. Okay.
Mayor, trustees, this is Officer Cooper Cramblett. He is going to do this presentation tonight. Thank you.
All right, good evening, board, the Shad family, everybody from Australia who's here as well. For the board that doesn't know, the Shad family has family here from Australia tonight, not specifically because of this. It literally just happened to work out like Murphy's Law. So that's why the boardroom's so full tonight. I have a speech prepared that I'm just going to read to you guys. I apologize. I have to speak into the microphone, but if you can't hear me, let me know, okay? I want to say thank you to all the first responders that are here. I have the two officers that were with me on the scene, Officer Shepard, Officer Aguirre. We have Mountain View Fire Department here, and then we have Frederick Fire EMS. They were the crew that actually transported little Kaylin. Those are those two right there, if you guys would wait for me. I'm going to get right into my speech here to make it kind of quick. Good evening, members of the town board, our first responders, and most importantly, the Shad family. I'm here tonight to present a Mead Police Department Life Saving Award. Usually this honor is reserved for trained professionals, the police officers and paramedics who wear a uniform every day. But heroism doesn't care about age, rank, or experience. Heroism is defined by what you do at the exact moment fear strikes. Recently, these officers that I just introduced standing here with me, Mountain View Fire, Frederick Fire EMS, responded to a critical emergency here in the town. Lanny Shad, who I want to point out to Lonnie, is right here in the orange Broncos shirt. You wave for everybody. Lonnie Shad's 2.5-year-old sister, Kaylin. Where's she at, Miss Laura? There she is right there. Kaylin. She was involved in a tragic accidental near drowning incident. In a situation that would completely overwhelm most adults, 9-year-old Lonnie did not panic. He didn't run away. He demonstrated an extraordinary presence of mind. Without hesitating, Lonnie swam to Kaylin as he knew she needed help. His instant, decisive actions directly saved Kaylin's life. But what makes Lonnie's actions truly unforgettable isn't just what he did. It is the incredible calm and compassion he showed afterwards. Once he knew his sister was safe, Lonnie quietly went and changed into an orange Denver Broncos shirt. The same one he's wearing tonight. I like your shirt, buddy. When we arrived on scene and I eventually met Lonnie, I asked him how old he was, which he replied 9. I asked Lonnie what his name was, and he told me, and I told him my name. Without hesitation, Lonnie reached out his right hand, stepping towards me, and shook my hand and said, "Nice to meet you, Cooper." I spoke to a 9-year-old boy who didn't even seem to fully grasp the massive magnitude of what he had just done. To him, he was probably just being a big brother helping his little sister. Yet, those actions reflected the absolute highest ideals of protection, responsibility, and love. And for that, I'm proud of you, Lonnie. Lonnie may live in Arvada, but his heroic actions here in Mead have left an impact on me that I will never forget. Lonnie, you embodied the very best of what first responders are supposed to do. You displayed the absolute willingness to put others before yourself. That is highly commendable. During the response, Lonnie remained completely composed and respectful. In our brief conversation, Lonnie shared with me his love for the Denver Broncos and his favorite player, quarterback Bo Nix. I told Lonnie my favorite son, who's also in the room tonight, his favorite player too is Bo Nix. Seeing Lonnie's face light up at the simplest conversation, such as talking about the Broncos and Bo Nix, can remind all of us of the pure resilience and innocence of a child, even right after a traumatic moment. As a parent and as an officer, witnessing a child step into a crisis like this is profoundly moving. Lonnie, you prevented a tragedy. The Mead community is incredibly proud of you. I, too, am incredibly proud of you. Your story will inspire every single person who hears it. Lonnie, can you come up here for me, please? Matter. Laura, Mike, do you guys want to come up here too? Yeah, thanks. I'll have you guys stand right here so we can this. I have to use my. I'll keep it loud here. Lonnie, for your extraordinary bravery, your quick thinking, and your fierce love for your sister, it is my distinct honor to present you with the Mead Police Department Life Saving Award. Everyone, please join me in a round of applause for Lonnie.
Lonnie is super late for her. Kaylin. Can we get her a better child? I mean, I'll take him off. Right. I forgot there's another one. And we have all of our kids. Kaylin.
Lonnie's gonna come over and shake all of your hands from right to left. You want the holder of the award?
Can we get a?
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you want to? Right here. Yeah.
So there's one more thing that I want to give you on behalf of the Board of Trustees with my calendar. And it is for only people. It's an air award for outstanding service on. And thank you very much for what you did for your sister and for your family. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All of this is.
You might have made a yellow.
All right, on the count of three, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, hero, okay? 1, 2, 3, hero.
I think so. We're gonna let you on.
All of these first responders, want to leave your hand over. Yeah, want to take that back to mom? I just have a couple more things that she does. Laura, and there's a little bit of swag stuff from our town. There's a police department patch that we have. And there's another coin in there. Hey, Lonnie, can you come up here with me, buddy? I'll just have you sit right here, okay? Or stand right here with me, okay? Just a couple more minutes and then I'll be done. Thank you guys all for that. So Lonnie, before you take your seat, buddy, I have one more surprise for you and your family. I know how much you love the Broncos and Bo Nix. And I thought a real life hero who wears a Broncos orange shirt during a crisis deserves something truly special. So I personally reached out to the Denver Broncos organization and I told them all about what you did for your sister. The Broncos were amazed by your bravery and they want to meet you in person. They're bringing you and your entire family out for a full day of training camp and they will be in contact with you guys after tonight. Lonnie, you looked out for your sister, and today this community and your favorite team is looking out for you. If I can, everyone, one more time, can I have another round of applause for Lonnie? Again, thank you to the board. Thank you to all the first responders that are here. Thank you to the Shad family and the extended family or whomever from Australia. I appreciate you guys willing to come up here and do this. I know it's a far drive, Laura, so thank you guys so much for doing that. That concludes what I had for tonight. So again, thank you to the board for allowing me to do this. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Officer Cooper. To the family, thank you very much for being here. Everyone that is from here, or afar. Thank you for joining us in this little teeny town of the town of Mead. So thank you so much for coming. We truly enjoyed this, and thank God everybody is okay. Thank you very much. And to our first responders, thank you. Thank you so much. So those who are with us virtually, we're going to just give a few minutes to the fans of Lonnie, a little break to say or sit, and because the next is our very interesting audit financial statements. So you can go enjoy the coolness of our Colorado weather.
Thank you, Lonnie. Hey, buddy, can I put this in your bag for you as well? You're welcome, buddy. And then we'll go outside and we'll go check out the cars and stuff, okay?
Yeah, you're a good little man. Good man. Yeah, fun. Oh, this is much hotter festival. Yeah. Same.
Check him.
Remember we watched Bluey?
No, I've been here since 6 or small. Those are. I guess I'm on it. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to proceed with our informational, our 2025 audit financial statements, and I'm going to turn the floor over to our Administrative Services Director, Mary Surratt. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Wow, seriously, you're going to make me follow that, huh? That was amazing. Amazing to the police officers and everybody involved. That was great. So 2025 audit and audited financial statements. Here we are, right? 2025 was a good year. We did a lot in 25. Staff just completed the audited financial statements with a lot of work from our financial consultant, Lorraine Trotter from Professional Management Solutions, who's going to talk to you tonight. And Dimitri Chernak from DMC Auditing is the auditor who is online. And I think we're going to start with Dimitri online for his information about the audit. Thank you, Dimitri, for all your hard work. Appreciate you.
You as well, Mary. Thank you for having me. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Thank you for having me present the audited financial statements to you this evening. Really, what I like to focus on, this is what, year 3, I believe. I'm actually sad I'm not there in person. This is the one year where I couldn't make it in person, but I would have loved to meet the hero of the day. But definitely very hard to follow that. So hopefully it'll be just as exciting or as a presentation. But really, what I want to focus on is really what our work was done by our firm, DMC Auditing Consulting, to where we are our audit process and what we've done. And I believe I kind of go over this with you every year. I'm going to try to keep it very, very high level, very kind of layman's terms to keep it, make sure everybody understands what we've kind of done and what we performed and what our duties are. And with that, I will share my screen and I will share a certain page of the financial statements that are in front of you. So on page 2, on the top, page 1 is what is called the Independent Auditor's Report. And this is the report that really audit firms get paid for. Is basically to say this is our opinion, this is what we are required to perform in accordance with Colorado state statutes for for all government organizations. And so this is kind of what the culmination of all our work and all our processes that have taken place over the course of the last, since May, or even earlier since April. So this is a combination of everything, and this is this letter right here, the 3-page letter, page 1, 2, and 3. So I just want to go over that and really present to you what we've performed, and then go over the results of our procedures. And then Lorraine will probably talk more in depth of the financial statements like she usually does. So our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinions. And really what that means is we look for reasonable assurance. We don't look for absolute assurance. We look for reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatements, which means they're free from significant errors. And that's really all that means. Is we are looking to make sure that the people that are looking at the financial statements can reasonably rely on the numbers that are reported in there, whether it's the public or you as the Board of Trustees or anybody looking at these at the state auditor's office, looking at these financial statements can put reliance on the numbers that are in front of them and that they're done in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And that's really what it boils down to. And so that's really what our main objective is. And so in performing these procedures, how we get to that reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement is we perform an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. This year, similar to last year, we also had to perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, which basically means we had to perform additional procedures because the town once again hit the threshold for what's called a single audit, which this year was $1 million for fiscal year 2025. And so once that threshold is exceeded in terms of federal grants expended by the town, it requires us to look at the town's financial statements in a little bit of a more focused light, a little bit more in depth, because we have to have certain additional procedures performed, including a compliance audit on federal grants. And with that being said, we exercised professional judgment, maintained professional skepticism throughout the audit. Obviously, we follow generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. So we can choose. Every auditor follows the same standards, but we have a choice of what procedures we choose to perform. We still comply with these standards, but we have professional skepticism and judgment to determine how we're going to apply those procedures, what procedures we're going to do, and what areas we're going to focus on, and what areas we're not going to focus on, because we felt that there was adequate enough controls, or there was a low enough risk that we didn't feel like there was a reason to dive into a certain area. We identify and assess risk of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, and we design and perform procedures responsive to those risks. Really what that boils down to is kind of what I was saying, is we choose what procedures to perform. We evaluate the risk of different areas of the town's financial statements and financial processes, and then we focus our efforts based on that risk to determine what procedures do we perform. How do we focus those procedures? Do we do multiple procedures in a certain area because we feel like there's a high enough risk for a misstatement or fraud, and so we choose to do that. And we focus our procedures based on conversations we have with your staff. We assess the risk based on different testing that we have or history. Now that this is year 3 of our audit, we've done several audits. We have a pretty good understanding of what the town operates, the town's procedures, and so that's how we focus our efforts and focus our testing on that. We obtain an understanding of internal controls relevant to the audit in order to design the procedures, and like I mentioned, we look at different processes in place: accounts payable, payroll, different collections of taxes, receiving. And so we look at different areas to determine utility billing. We look at different areas to determine if there's a high enough risk that we need to focus more effort towards that area. And we use that based on conversations and follow-up inquiries and follow-up testing that we are required to do. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used. So anytime there's an accounting policy that has a significant impact on the financial statements, we look at that policy. We try to evaluate whether it's calculated properly, whether the town actually follows the policies. A good example is usually some sort of vacation PTO policy of some sort where there's a payout involved. And so we usually look at those policies pretty closely to ensure that the town actually follows, and we notify management and the board of trustees if there is any non-compliance. We also look at reasonableness of significant accounting estimates made by management. Not every number in this report that you're in front of you is tied to some bank statement or some invoice or some document that says this is the number and we can point to this number and this is exactly the number. Some of the amounts that you see in front of you are estimates. And because the financial statements have to be reflected at a point in time, at December 31st, 2025. And so some numbers, a perfect example of that is the pension amounts related to the FPPA. And so that's an estimate. That is based on GASB 68, and 71 and 73. And so it has to be, those pension amounts have to be reported, but they're not exact. They're estimates. The key is that they have to be estimates based on the accounting standards that are basically guide the estimate and how it needs to be reported and what's considered a reasonable estimate. And so that's why that's in there, and that's we review all those estimates to determine if they are reasonable. And so the other last thing we do is we conclude and we look at whether there are conditions or events or anything that happened during the year or happened up to this point to where that raise substantial doubt about the town's ability to continue as a going concern for a reasonable period of time. And really what that means is, does the town have enough reserves to continue to operate as a town? Really, we evaluate the health of the organization, but we don't evaluate it in terms of is it healthy enough to continue. We don't evaluate, well, how does it compare to a nearby town or other municipalities. We purely look at to say, is there enough reserves? Is there the revenues, are they exceeding? Are the expenditures exceeding revenues? Is there reason to believe that the town will not continue operating in the future? And we have no reason to believe that, obviously. Obviously, the town is doing very well financially, and so we have no reason to believe that's the case. But we do look at that as part of our procedures. And before I move on, any questions?
Questions for Dimitri? Okay. I don't see any. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yes. And so in conclusion, we provide an opinion. So in our opinion, the financial statements, this is on page 1, financial statements refer to above are presented fairly in all material respects. And what that means is that you have a clean opinion, also known as an unmodified opinion. And so therefore, once again, the town has passed the audit successfully. As a matter of fact, I will say even better than last year. There was a finding last year because of a material audit adjustment. And when there is a single audit, we have to report any material audit adjustments as findings. where there was no single audit, we may not be required to do so. And so I will say that not only that, but there was no findings this year, and the town has cleared last year's finding with success. And I'm happy to say that there was no findings from the single audit. There are no issues that we've discovered. There's really, quite frankly, nothing to report to you that's anything negative but positive praise for your staff, for Mary, for her staff, for Lorraine and her hard work, and Helen for leading the team. So I will say, this is probably one of our more successful audits of the town, just because of the results and how positive they are this year, even with a single audit. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Dimitri. Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll proceed. Lorraine, you have the floor. Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice to be here. Great to see you. Have a chance to go through these financials with you. Extra bonus tonight with the wonderful award ceremony and all the honor and family values there. That was just fantastic and very touching. I'm going to start by saying what I usually say, that I think that one of the most important roles that you have as trustees is your fiduciary responsibility to safeguard the assets of the town. And as part of that, knowing how the town is ending each year financially is a key item. And this audit tells you that. And so I'll walk you through the salient parts of it this year, as I usually do. And you're welcome to ask me questions now or later, or to feel like we've satisfied your understanding of where we are and that you've accomplished that fiduciary responsibility after our review tonight. I'm going to start with the management's discussion and analysis that's on the page after the auditor's opinion, and it's called small room numeral 1 in the page numbering system. And this is the part of the audit that shows what the numbers mean. And the financial highlights are always listed at the top there in case people ask you, oh, I saw you got the financial statements. How did the town do last year? You've got some highlights that you can refer to and rattle off. The net position of the town increased by $13.2 million during 2025. Huge increase, that's 20%, largely because of the grants, et cetera, that you were awarded that came in during 2025. At the end of the year, the second bullet, the town's governmental funds, which is your operating funds, rather than your enterprise fund for the sewer, had combined ending fund balances of $27 million at the end of the year. This was a slight decrease from prior years, 11%, because there was planned use of the fund balances that had been built up over the past many years, and in the municipal facilities fund and the transportation fund, in order to build the projects for which those funds were amassed. During 2025, the town's general fund increased its fund balance by $2.1 million, about 30%, before it transferred money to other funds. And your practice and budget has been to transfer any unspent appropriations for spending during the year to the capital improvement fund at the end of the year. And this year you transferred, after transferring that money, you still had an increase in your fund balance in the general fund of over $500,000, 7%. The town's sewer fund's net position increased during the year, primarily because of sewer taps received. And those are received in order to be used in future years for capital improvements, so they shouldn't be relied on for operations. And we'll talk a little bit more about the operating loss that was in the sewer fund during 2025. Moving forward in this MD&A, the management's discussion and analysis, there's the usual information about how the fund accounting works in municipal government. This is a required way to report your funds. And there's essentially 3 categories of governmental funds. You have 2 of those categories here. The governmental funds are the funds that are tracking the flow of money, the flow of financial resources. Do you have enough money coming in to fund your operations for the next year? And generally that's your general fund and a lot of the special revenue funds that you have. Mura fund is included in that as an operating fund. You have one proprietary fund, which is the sewer fund, where it's tracking the flow of economic resources because it's a going concern of its own to be able to provide wastewater treatment and collection throughout the decades going forward. So it's tracking whether or not the plant and commitment and the pipes in the ground and the treatment operations are all having enough money come in to support that going forward. Over on small room numeral 3 is a condensed statement of net positions. And because you have these two different types of activities here, the governmental, which is the operational, and the business type, there's a few different columns on this report. It's not just one bottom line like Target might have. So for your governmental activities, you see your current assets and capital assets total 86 million, and your liabilities against those assets were very, very few. And so you have this net position of 72 million. The prior year it was 59 million. So you've been building capital assets. Now, because these governmental activities don't usually track the value of those assets, the value of the roads, the value of buildings, they're looking at how much money do you have to operate and provide the services that are needed each year. This table is one of the few in the report that includes the capital assets. And that's one of the things that is an estimate that Dimitri referred to, that some of the numbers are estimates, because your capital assets are recorded when you buy them at cost, and then they're depreciated over a period of time on a straight line basis based on what the estimated useful life is. So the exact value of an asset at any given time is an estimate based on those criteria. And that's a big part of your net worth, your net position, is those capital assets. In the business type activities, same thing. You've got some current assets, cash and receivables. You also have capital assets, which is the plant and the pipes in the ground. You've got liabilities against those and a net position at year end of 6.5 million, which is a little bit more than the previous year, which was 6.493 million. But more than half of the town's total net position, if you look at the total column for 2025, is in those capital assets. And those are necessary to you being able to perform the duties that you have, to house your employees and to process your sewage and collect waste, etc. Approximately 11% of the town's net position is restricted as to how it can be used in the future. So all of your impact fees that you get from development to have development pay for itself as it goes along are restricted to their various purposes for which they were collected: streets, transportation, parks, etc. And then the remaining part is your unrestricted net position, and the governmental has 18.5 million there, and the sewer has 1.4. So this net position is what you've amassed over all time since Mead became a town. And this shows you at the end of 25, you've amassed a net position of that $78.9 million worth of assets less liabilities. The next page, small room number 4, shows what happened just during the 2 years shown. So why did that net position go up by a certain amount during 25? Well, this shows you the operational side that allowed the net positions to increase. So in the governmental activities, you're showing here program revenues, which are revenues derived from the programs themselves. And some of those are capital grants that you'll see here in the government activities. You got a lot of grants and contributions for these activities during 2025. And you'll have some charges for services, issuing permits and charging recreation fees, for instance, are charges for services. But most of these governmental activities revenues are in that second section on the left where it says general revenues, where you have to, like most cities, levy taxes for sales taxes and property taxes in order to get the money to have the police patrol, have the parks and recreation be available, to do the park maintenance, to do the street maintenance, etc. And so you're not charging people each time they drive down a road or have a police patrol by their house. So the tax base is what supports those services primarily. So you'll see the big numbers under the governmental activities revenues are in the general revenues section. If you go to the right to business type activities, there's almost nothing in the general revenues. There's just interest and a few like late fees, et cetera. Most of what the business does is it runs like a business and has charges for services for our sewage treatment. And then there's the grants that come in for various operations. So that's the difference between these two types of activities that you're going to see in the rest of this MD&A. Program expenses are tied to the type of actions and governmental expenses that are shown there, general government, community development, et cetera. And in the business type, it's all the sewer utility is the program that's used, that those monies are used for. And again, you see the same ending net position for both of these, but it shows here how it changed during that year from 24 to 25. The first column near the bottom, the third line up, increase in net position in the governmental activities of 13.1 million in 1 year. And again, largely because of grants. The business type increase in net position was much more negligible of 80,000, but that was due mostly to 200,000 in those fees for future plant expansion or replacement. Moving on from those two tables are the types of information that you usually see in your monthly financial reports that are in your packet, fund by fund. And so the governmental activities generally are shown next, and these, if you look to the right on the page 5, you see those revenues by source. And if you read the pie chart like a clock, starting at where noon would be, 12 o'clock would be, and going to the right, that's the order of the legend. So the 6.3 from noon to roughly 1 is charges for services. Then you have operating grants and contributions. Then big capital grants and contributions. That's a big 30% chunk of the revenues that came in for those funds during that year. Then you have property taxes in purple and sales and use taxes, which together make up almost half of the revenues for the governmental activities. Then you have some other taxes and investments and some general revenues, fees, and things of that nature. Down below, you see how the blue is the expenses, and in almost no areas does the program revenues outpace the program expenses, which is why the tax base is so important. Public Works is the exception during 2025 because of all the grants that came in for those operations. Next page is similar for the business type activity, and you just have the sewer business type activity here. And here you see in the first chart, pie chart, charges for service, 3/4 of your revenues are from charges for services, and 16% came in from capital grants and contributions, which were the fees for future expansion. And down below, you see your expenditures slightly higher, if you can ferret that out with reading glasses, than the revenues that came in for the operations. So we're required to show things a certain way, and here we'll see the individual funds that are called major funds. They have enough assets or liabilities or revenue or expenditures to garner that designation. The revenues by source in the general fund is really very similar to what we saw for all of the governmental funds together. But here, it doesn't have all the grants. It has taxes is almost 70%. And expenditures by category are divvied up, as you know, from your budgeting. And then there's some information on the next page 8 about each of the other major funds. And there's a lot of action here with the Capital Improvement Fund, the Municipal Facilities Fund, the Transportation Fund, where again, they were intentionally using the money that had been amassed over several years to get these major projects done. The Sewer Fund, though, near the bottom of page 8, does point out here the net position was 6,573,000, and that was a slight increase over the past year, but the increase was due to the receipt of tap fees for future capital needs. The fund had an operating loss of 164,000. So please remember this when you start preparing the 2027 budget, that every year, I know you look at the fees and the charges, but it's really important to keep doing that because expenses go up and they might go up by more than what you're used to raising the rates for, but operating rates should cover operating expenses in an enterprise fund. Capital assets and debt administration, et cetera, are addressed later in the book. So I'll just go through a few of the key areas and go more quickly through the rest of the book. And if you go to page 4, these are the full statements that we just saw condensed versions of, so I'm going to skip those and just go to page 6, which is these governmental funds. And you'll see here on pages 6 and 7, the major funds: general fund, MURA, municipal facilities, transportation, street improvement, and capital. And then there's about 5 more funds that aren't major funds that are listed in the back of the book on pages 43 and 44 that are totaled there and appear in this total column here on page 7. And again, here we don't show in the governmental funds display any capital assets. It's the flow of financial resources, the money coming in, the money coming out. You don't see what we saw on those first pages where we added the assets back and any related debt. So here these numbers are smaller, and your fund balances for these are 27 million at the end of the year, and that's cash. That's balances of financial resources that can be used. If we go to page 9, here's what you look at probably the most when you look at your financial statements each month, and what you think about with budgeting and what really is the flow of financial resources. The revenues coming in, the expenditures going out. Any transfers in or out, and what you started with next to the bottom, the second to the bottom line is fund balances beginning of the year and fund balances at the end of the year. So for the general fund, your revenues were 10,000,008, your expenditures were 8,000,007, and your other financing sources, which was mostly transfers out and some lease proceeds, had a net change in your fund balance of 503,000. That was one of the bullet points on the beginning of the MD&A with financial highlights. So your fund balance in the general fund went up 503,000, and your end of the year was 7.5 million in general fund balance. Halfway through the page, you'll see in the expenditure section, you see capital outlay. Here it shows what you paid that year to add some capital projects. It doesn't show what the value of those are and the depreciated value that we showed in the beginning. It just shows this year's expense, not the whole 70 million or whatever it was, or 40 million, I'm sorry, that you have amassed over time. So that capital outlay going across all the way to the total column, 18.2 million in capital outlay during 2025. That's a huge amount of projects being accomplished during that fiscal year. I'm going to move on to the next part of the book on page 12. And here's the similar statements for the enterprise fund, the sewer fund, and it's going to be exactly like we talked about in the beginning because you don't have more than one fund. So the totals that were up there are the totals of the sewer fund. If you look at page 13, this is where it shows more detail. Operating revenues, 1,038,000. Operating expenses, 1,203,000. And that's why you have a net operating loss of 164,000. So again, you might dog-ear that page or circle that in here because that's one of the key things to pay attention for going forward. You do as an investment income and you pay off a loan and have some interest expense, but that capital charges near the bottom, sewer tap fees, is what brought your change in net position into the positive, away from that minus 164,000 operating loss. So you had minus 164, you added sewer tap fees of 213, which really aren't supposed to be used for operating, but you still had a positive net change in financial position. Let's move on to page 15. And these are the notes of the financial statements where you can see what all these various terms mean, how the town handles various items. These are some of the things that Dimitri and his staff attest, and they say, how are we doing this? How are we handling that? How are these capital assets shown? How are they depreciated? Page 7 shows the types of assets that you have and the years that they're depreciated over. Page 18 shows other descriptions of various items on the balance sheets. Page 19 starts talking about some pension information. Near the bottom, it shows how your property taxes are levied, if you're ever wondering about that or someone asks you. Page 20 shows how the cash and investments are held and how, where you have that money. And you're doing a good job about keeping most of your cash in your investments and earning some good interest on those monies. Page 21 and on shows various other items and intra-fund transactions. But go to page 22, and that's where your capital assets are shown. And page 22 for your governmental funds, and for 23 for your proprietary fund, the sewer fund. And these are where the numbers came from that were on the first schedule we looked at that showed the 46 million in capital assets for your governmental activities. And you can see how they changed during the year. A lot of things added. There's a lot of construction in process, which is the first number in the additions column on page 22. So as you know, a lot of these road and street projects aren't done yet, but they're in process. And then you did go from 29 million at the bottom of the first column, the balance at the end of last year, to last year, meaning 2024, and then to 46 million at the end of 2025. The next page is the sewers, same type of information, and it stayed pretty steady. There wasn't a lot of change there. You don't have much debt. Bottom of page 23 does show for the governmental funds what your debt picture is, though. You started the year with one financed vehicle that got paid off, and then you added 2 more, street sweeper and a dump truck. Compensated absences, that's another estimate. If everyone were to suddenly leave and you had to pay out all of their leave pay, what would it cost you? So that's an estimate, especially with what would be due within 1 year. And these are the kind of things that your bond underwriters are looking at. They are seeing, are you tracking this? Not only do you have a clean opinion, but do you fully disclose all these types of financial considerations in your audit? And are they clearly presented and seeming right? And what you would expect to see for a town your size. And that will be some of the things their analysts look at when they give you that all-important bond rating coming up next week. Then long-term debt is described more fully on the following pages. For each of those long-term debts, it tells you all about it and the years until they're paid off for each 5-year period, each of the next 5 years and any additional time after that for each of those. And then you get into note 7 on page 27, which, I'm sorry, it starts on page 26, which is that FPPA plan that Dimitri referred to. It's the Fire and Police Pension Plan that's run by the state of Colorado. Because the town of Mead is a member, you share some small portion of its liabilities or assets. And so that's determined each year in the audit in this lengthy note, which I'll let you read on your own if you wish. Going over to page 30 is other information about other plans which are more concisely described here as far as your deferred compensation plan for most employees and other things that you pay for, other post-employment benefits. If you had any claims or judgments that were concerning, they'd be listed in this last note, and same with litigation. So that really goes through the crux of the report. After that, on page 33 and 34 are the same numbers we just looked at, only compared to budget. So you can see how you budget each year and how you came out and how you were in compliance with your budgets. And it does that for each of the funds at some point in the back of the book here. There's more information about the FPPA on pages 39 and 40. And when you get to the end, near the end, page 43, this is where those non-major funds are tallied up. First, their assets and liabilities, which form their balance sheet on pages 43 and 44. And you can see these are not as big of funds. There's not as much action. Some of them don't have any figures, for instance, in their liabilities. So they're non-major and they're totaled here. Page 45 and 46 does show their revenues and expenditures. And many of them did have some capital outlay, various parks and playground equipment and things of that nature, and vehicle leases that are paid for by these funds. There's more budget to actual for the next several pages through page 53. And then at the end, starting at page 54, is the single audit that Dimitri referenced. And it's just a term that means if the federal government wants an audit too, you can do it all at once in one single fell swoop. But it has its own requirements, of course, and that's what these different letters are in the back here that are requirements of the single audit. When you've met the threshold of a certain amount of federal money, and you had 3 sources of federal money during 2025 that exceeded that threshold, then these tests and additional material findings, if there are any, are required. And again, that went fine. Page 61 shows what those 3 federal grants were during the year. And you can see that the CDOT one, even though it came through the Colorado Department of Transportation, it was federal money that was passed through. So that's what required this single audit and put you over the threshold. Very last 2 pages are a form required by I guess Congress, I don't know, somebody makes you report, and the state does, how you use money for local highways. And so we prepare this each year to show what's coming in and what's not. And most of it, if you look on the second to last page, is non-property taxes and assessments, general fund revenues, etc., street revenues, your street tax go for this, as well as a lot of the grants for the transportation projects. Well, I may not have seen like it, but that was a pretty fast walk through these financial statements. And as I said initially, I'm happy to answer any questions now if you have them, or later if you have them. So
Thanks, Lorraine, so much. Question, Trustee Hagan.
You mentioned that we don't have any liabilities in the form of litigation. Is that true? Oh, so it's still ongoing.
it says, as of the date of this report, there was nothing that needed to be disclosed that showed that there was items pending that would adversely affect this. Although the attorneys give that information based on their knowledge of what's happening.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lorraine. Thank you, Dimitri, for being with us, even though you're far away from us.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Having
Have a
us.
good night. Thanks.
Good night.
All right, we're going to move on to our branding and whatever the word is, monumentation. There you go. It's a big word. Our town engineer, public works director, Erica Rasmussen, will kick it off. Thanks, ma'am, for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. While Christine is bringing up our presentation, we're here to talk about the Mead Gateway project at the Welker and I-25 interchange. As you know, we have 2 new CDOT roundabouts at the on and off ramps there that are going to be under construction here in the spring. And we would like to put our mark on those roundabouts and identify Mead. In June of 2025, we selected a landscape architect, that's BHA. You may recall they came and gave a presentation of similar works that they've done in Colorado, northern Colorado specifically. And so they're under contract already. Then in March of 2026, we issued an RFQ for the art fabrication and installation. We utilized a procurement platform called the Cafe, which is a little different than what we normally do. It's targeted specifically for artists, and so we felt we would get a much better response. It's nationwide, and actually there were a couple of applicants from out of the country as well. So we had really good exposure, lots of folks looking at it. We received 119 submissions. So that was a lot to weed through, lots of good stuff in there. We did shortlist 3 artists to put together site-specific proposals. And we interviewed those artists and we unanimously selected Karen Yank. So she's joining us tonight virtually from her house in New Mexico. She's very experienced in public art and particularly in situations like this, in rights of way all across the country. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her share information about her and her vision for our project. Hopefully she's online.
I'm here, I think. Can you hear me? Can you see me or just hear me?
At the moment, we can hear you, Karen. Give
So
us just a second, because I think
it would be nice if you could see me, but join as a panelist, it says.
Yes. There she is.
There. There we go, a little technology. I want to thank you all for inviting me to this meeting and giving me a chance to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my life and career and then get to my designs for your project. I wish I could be there in person, but this seems like it's working pretty well. I have lived in New Mexico for over 35 years, and I've done over 60 public art projects around the country, and probably about 20 of them are in my home state here in New Mexico. So it shows that, I've had a lot of success in my own area. Next slide. This is my father, Paul Yank, and I grew up in Wisconsin, and he was a sculptor, and he did a lot of public work as well. And so I grew up learning from him and actually working with him on his pieces. So I was working, welding already at age 13. And so I had a great start, and then I also did my BFA at Madison, Wisconsin with a focus on sculpture, and then I did my master's at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and then I moved to New Mexico and started my career and my created my studio in my home, and I show often in museums and in galleries as well. I am represented by one of the best galleries in Santa Fe that keeps me pretty busy as well. Next slide. This is my latest piece, and it's kind of close to you. It's in Greeley at the college at the University of Northern Colorado. They had a large competition for, and they use cafe as well, and they, for their new osteopathic medical school. So it's a really beautiful campus that they've built in this building, and they put out a call for a very large project, and they chose 10 finalists and then narrowed it to 4 of us that they chose to actually work with. And so mine was the largest piece, and then there's smaller pieces around the campus as well. I'm happy to say I'm the only one that got mine done in time for a dedication next week. On Friday the 24th, they're going to dedicate the building, and I'm going to be there, and my piece will be part of that celebration, and I'll be speaking with people in front of the sculpture. This photo is not like a final photo that I would normally use, but I haven't had a chance because they were under construction when I installed. And so now they're finally caught up. And so when I go there for the dedication, I'll have my photographer take professional photographs, and the site will be all clean and nice. On the next slide. Here, you get to see how tall that really is. I mean, because that building kind of can dwarf you a bit. But I stood there and, I have to crane my neck to look up. So it's 20 feet tall, and it's mixed metals. It's Corten steel and stainless steel. And I use those exclusively in my work because the Corten steel is the same steel that you make I-beams and such out of, because what happens is you take off the milling and then with a sandblaster, and then you rust it, and it creates this rust coating that protects the steel forever. And it doesn't degrade like mild steel would. And then, of course, stainless steel is very weather resistant and stain resistant, and longevity is very well. If you engineer this material, I had to do this for a project that I'll show you in a second. This piece will last 450 years before any kind of really start of deterioration. So I think that's pretty good. Next slide. Here's just a quick show you a couple other projects that I think the committee selected me, because of my past work to at least compete. And the one on the top left is called Of Earth and Sky, or no, it's called Where the Earth Meets the Sky, I'm sorry. And it is for our international airport here in New Mexico, and it has these incredible vistas where you can see completely around, and you can see, as the title says, where the earth meets the sky. The one next to it is for a college, and it's a 20-foot piece, and it's in a group of other pieces that I made in this kind of plaza. But this one's the largest, and you can sit on the bench seat underneath the flower, and it creates its own shade. The ones on the bottom really kind of got me to this point where I am now. I was chosen to do this project in '04. We finished in '08. It's for across Interstate 40, and it has an interchange, and then it has two pedestrian bridges. And I did all the artwork for the pedestrian bridges that go over the freeway, and that's over 500 feet of artwork. And then I did these two monumental pieces in the interchange later on. And so that's why the project stretched out for a long time. But it kind of gave me all the skills I would need to do projects that have to do with roadways and intersections or roundabouts. And so, next slide. This is my first roundabout piece, and it's for Bend, Oregon. And I did it in 2024. And they wanted something to commemorate their history and their future and their present. And this shows the rocky cliffs of the Deschutes River. And then it's got these logs that caught in it and created a waterfall. And this alludes to the long history of logging in the area, but then it embraces the virtually 100% of the land is now used for outdoor recreation. And then they also have a thriving art community. Next slide. This is one that I just finished before I started the Greeley one, and it's for Carson City, Nevada, and it's called Sense of Place. And I am going to play a short video for you, which is the next slide, and I'm not going to talk and let you see that. You just click it. There's no sound. If you can't figure out the sound, I could just talk over it, I guess. It should be working. Darn.
Okay, it won't have any sound because we're in Zoom.
Okay. Yeah. How about just keep playing it and I'll tell you about it. The city was so gracious as to interview me and do all this footage and make this video that they've been promoting the project with. And you see my crew and I putting the pieces that we transported, from New Mexico together in this parking lot that we used as a staging area. And here's this cottonwood tree that is famous in the area, and so I feature that in my piece. I also have this circular piece that reflects the first seeded silver dollar that was minted in Carson City, so it has those scallops going around. And here I'm talking about this edge of the outside of the sculpture. It has the symbols from the Washoe tribe seal, and I asked them if I could use it in the sculpture, and they were really excited about being part of the whole sense of place that I was building with the sculpture. And here you get the excitement of the installation. We had to do it in the wee hours of the morning when there wasn't too much traffic. So that's why you see that. All righty. So that's good. We could go to the next slide. And here is one of the two designs that I have for you. This would be on the east side of 25 if you're well, either direction, it's on the east side. And I wanted to distinguish the two sides, being a little different. And so the east side is more of the plains and where you would find the crops and the agriculture. And since you have such a rich history with the agriculture, I wanted to showcase that. So what you're seeing here is you've got my circle, first of all, that is my signature in my artwork, and I use that really to reference what I was talking about before, is where the earth meets the sky, because often my pieces are in these beautiful vistas, and you can really see so far away that you get the sense of the curvature of the earth, and it reminds us that we're part of this, global society. And then in that circle, I showcase the uniqueness of the exact place that I'm representing. And so in this case, it's Mead, and I'm showing the front face of the Rocky Mountains. And then underneath, you see these lines receding, and those are supposed to be the crop fields. And I have some negative space around. And so in real life, those will show up a little bit more prominent because it's such a small model here. But and then I have this sky region, and I often like to create some kind of an X in my pieces as well to kind of signify the importance of marking the space and time that we are in right now. So marking this community and this time of our evolution. And then on the far right side, you see the mountain runoff, and you see like the sun or the moon rising or setting, and the runoff goes down and feeds the rivers or the aquifers that feed the crop fields and, make the community as beautiful as it is. The next slide. Here's the piece for the west side, and I wanted that to feel a little bit more, closer to the mountains. You're on the west side, which is where the mountains are, and so I use this large kind of blown up mountain vista as an anchor for the piece, and I've got my circle in there again, but I chose to do it in a different material so that it would feel unique from the other piece. And I have the water on the bottom of this base showing the lake, and I was kind of referencing Highland Lake, and you see the little grasses, and there's often the pictures when I'm doing my research, and people will send me pictures. These selection committee people had sent me photos. And you often get these vistas with the birds just flying, flocks of birds with the mountain backdrop and the beautiful sky. And so I wanted to kind of capture that. And so I have this flock of birds, and when you see it in the round, it'll really come to life. And then I also put these like rays of light breaking through the mountain just to, really kind of give it this uplifting feeling. Next slide. Now this one you can press and it'll show it in the round. You just tap it. There you go. So you get to see this as it spins around, and you get to see all of the different angles, and it comes to life. So, I mean, I think it's really nice to create a 3D model when I present so that you're not just seeing these stills and you don't really know what it's looking like on the other side or whatever. So the nice thing about doing these 3D models is that once they're designed, other than maybe doing some modifications, like on this one, I think I might be doing some modifications, but they're ready to go. So like if once I'm under contract, I can start cutting that metal like almost immediately. And that allows me to really be prolific and make as many big projects as I have quickly, and so, and to meet like a deadline of like yours, it was in the interest of the project to have something installed by springtime. So I think I can meet that deadline pretty comfortably if we get going fast. So next slide. Now this one will turn to, and this one I really like because of the birds. You'll see they come out from the surface at different levels, and so each part is just slightly different. And imagining it, 20-foot tall, it'll be really dynamic. Next slide. There you get a sense of the height. So I put a person in to kind of, instead of myself looking at it, so you get a sense of how big it will be. And it seems like 20 foot is really a great height for these roundabouts. I know that CDOT has a rule that it can't be over 24 feet tall, and I think usually the mounding of the roundabouts themselves are about 4 feet. So the 20 foot is about as tall as I can comfortably go. Next slide. here you get a sense of what they might look like if you were driving north from Denver and you came upon your interchange, your exits. And next slide. Here's just looking from if you were coming from Fort Collins and you were coming to Mead, you would exit here. And here's a little close-up of the West Side sculpture. And the next one will show you the East Side. And then I think I have, here is if you were coming from Wyoming, driving south, and you came to them, they'd be obviously quite some distance apart, but that's kind of the angle they would be at. And then the next slide will show you if you were coming from Denver. And I think that is my last slide, and I tried to be quick because I was told I should probably keep it to 10 minutes. I don't know what I did there. If anybody has questions, I could try to answer.
All right, we'll open it up for questions and comments. Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any questions or comments?
I did actually want to ask something, and I don't think this is for the artist so much as staff. I mean, I know these are artistic and they're going to be really cool and beautiful, but I was hoping maybe, and I probably am putting Erica on the spot here because she's not ready for it, but I know we discussed this once at one point, and this was before Brad and Jeremiah were on the board. But basically, the importance of having something in those roundabouts that are significant, that have stature, that have presence, and how they will affect the flow of traffic around those roundabouts and actually make them safer. That this is not just about aesthetics and art, that there is a safety component to these that is contributing to us wanting to do this.
I could even comment on that really quick, but when I was chosen for the Carson City one, there was some public that was worried that it was going to make it unsafe. And so they brought up all the studies and we all discussed it in a meeting similar to this, and how blocking the vision of across the roundabout is actually makes it safer. So they like to have something really prominent in the middle, and that's why they often mound it as well.
Anything to add, Erica or Helen?
Yeah, if I could, Trustee Harris and the board, I have been involved in several roundabout projects. And as an alternative of putting nothing in the middle, we had a roundabout that was put in by CDOT actually on State Highway 6 and Post Boulevard in Avon. And it is extremely unsafe. The beauty of roundabouts is the accidents you get are fender benders. But what they were getting were T-bone accidents because you could see straight west and straight east and people weren't deflecting. So they were going right through the center of the roundabout, thus defeating, and we had fatal T-bone accidents. So they actually had to go in and change the deflection angle. But the other way, if you look at roundabouts like those ones in Berthoud, there's plenty of high obstructed view because you really don't need to see through and you sure don't want to drive straight through. So I agree that I think it's a really good idea to put something in there. I think it makes it a visual, but it also blocks the oncoming traffic. So just my 2 cents.
Any follow-up, Mayor Pro Tem Harris?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen, for being with us tonight. And stick around.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Erica. All right. We'll move on to our proclamations, Parks and Recreation Month, July 2026. I've asked Trustee Crane to read the proclamation. Sir?
Proclamation, Parks and Recreation Month.
whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the town of Mead, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorder, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutrition services, and education. And whereas park and recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor of the Town of Mead, does hereby proclaim that July is recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in the Town of Mead.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation?
I make a motion to approve the Parks and Recreation proclamation.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Melissa.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Schranz,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Motion carries. I will be signing the proclamation after the meeting. And thank you, Lorelei, for what you and your team do for the opportunities for all of our meeting residents. So thank you very much. And please pass that to your department. We'll move on to public comment. The board welcomes public comment at this time for any item on the agenda. We will also take comments on items not on the agenda during the second public comment, number 11. Please remember that public comment is not intended to be a question and answer session. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. All comments should be directed to the Board of Trustees and not to specific individuals. If you wish to speak during this first public comment period, please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Please start by stating your full name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you're representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. We ask that all speakers and audience members treat one another with respect and dignity. Let's ensure we maintain a welcoming environment and avoid any actions that could be distracting. Melissa, do you have anyone signed in for this public comment period?
No, we do not.
Okay. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees on an agenda item?
Matthew by Main Street. It's interesting. I think before you guys all okay that artwork about that, I think we gotta get an opinion of most of the residents around there. I personally think it's a bit big, blocky, and a little much. I think we got something that represents the area a little bit more, but you guys gonna do what you're gonna do, but I think you gotta get the residents' opinion.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our consent agenda minus resolution number 40-2026. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and approved with one motion and vote. I want to recognize staff for putting together these items and board for reviewing them ahead of tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda minus the amended piece.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Schram.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll move on to resolution number 40-R-2026. And for the record, it's a resolution of the Town of Mead, Colorado, approving the art fabrication and installation agreement between the Town of Mead and Karen Yank for the Town of Mead Gateway at County Road 34 and I-25 interchange. I will turn over the podium or the floor to Trustee Crane for comments or questions.
Well, I pulled this resolution from the agenda because I had many citizens come to me and when they found out about this artwork and how much it was going to cost, and they just basically asked me why. Why do we need to spend that much money? Why do we need artwork in the roundabout? Why can't we use that money for something else that they actually wanted? Some of them brought up the splash pad at the community center, and I didn't have an answer for them. And I didn't kind of really expect an answer, but I just wanted to pull this so that I could oppose it and vote no.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments for this item? All right. May I have a motion to approve resolution number 40-R-2026?
I move to approve resolution number 40-R-2026. Resolution of the Town of Mead, Colorado, approving an art fabrication and installation agreement between the Town of Mead, Karen Yank for the Town of Mead Gateway at Colorado 34 and I-25 interchange.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. A roll call, please, Melissa.
Trustee Schram.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
No.
Trustee Cartwright.
Yes.
Trustee Hagan.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Resolution number 40-R-2026 is approved for this evening. Thank you. We'll move on to our public hearing tonight. Tonight, it will be on the Parks and Recreation Open Space and Trails Master Plan. I will open this public hearing at 7:38. And I will turn the floor over to our Community Development Director, Todd Bjorkus. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. It's my great pleasure during Parks and Rec Month, which is a great coincidence that we didn't plan it that way, but to introduce Taylor Broyhill with Logan Simpson, who's been our consultant, leading our consultant team with the firm since February. May.
I can't hear Todd. I don't know if his microphone's not on or what, but I can't hear crap.
Sorry.
My apologies, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll start over. So, Parks and Rec Month, it's my great pleasure to introduce Taylor Broyhill with Logan Simpson, who's been leading our team in regards to developing the Town of Mead's Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan. As you know, we engaged with Logan Simpson back in May of 2025, and throughout this entire process, there's been significant community engagement in each step, and that community engagement drove and created what is a critical roadmap for the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, staff, residents, development to have a vision and to implement that vision of what the town's parks, rec, open space, and trails look like going into the future. So the master plan that Taylor will present before you, it was posted to Mead in Motion on June 1st, so it's been available to the public for quite a while. She made a presentation before the Planning Commission on June 17th, and it is here this evening for your consideration for adoption. So I'll turn it over to Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Bjorkus, and good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Happy Parks and Recreation Month. What a timely and incredible proclamation. I am Taylor Broyhill. I'm the Consultant Project Manager for Mead in Motion, which is the town's Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Plan. You'll hear me refer to that as PROST as an acronym throughout this presentation. And it's been my great privilege to work with the town of Mead to get to know this community and I'd like to just start by saying thank you to staff and to you all as the Board of Trustees for placing your support behind this project and your trust in us to complete this important work. And most importantly, thank you to the residents of the town of Mead who have provided their ideas and their feedback to help shape the policies of this plan. So tonight I'll present highlights from this planning effort called Mead in Motion, and this has been developed through approximately, I think we're maybe meeting the end of a 16-month process here. And as was mentioned, the community input that we received throughout this process, as well as the needs assessment, really form the cornerstones of this planning effort. And they are balanced by our understanding of best practice of pro-service delivery, as well as an understanding of available resources in order to identify the specific actions and projects that are identified in the plan as being both functional and realistic. And so this is the formula that served as our framework for developing the plan for the process itself, as well as the way the information is presented in the plan. And so the purpose of this process was to update and replace the town's 2011 Parks, Open Space and Trails Master Plan, and along the way identify strategies for how to fund and maintain the existing system, as well as provide amenities for new assets. And so in doing so, the plan identifies strategic partnerships and funding opportunities both regionally and within Mead. And finally, this plan directs capital investment as well as staff time toward a prioritized list of actions and projects that are reflective of the community vision, the town's needs, and fiscal reality. And our starting point for this planning process is the town's existing PRO system. It's impressive, 9 parks, nearly 20 acres of open space, over 7 miles of trails, and a beautiful new community center, which is home base for the town's 75 recreation programs. So it's a system that the town and residents should be really proud of. And speaking of residents, as mentioned, community engagement informed every phase of the planning process and took place through numerous in-person and online interactive activities, resulting in over 1,000 touch points with members of the community throughout the process. What we heard from the community and confirmed by the statistically valid survey that was conducted as part of this effort was a demand for aquatic facilities with strong community preference for an indoor aquatic facility, upgrades and amenities at existing town parks, the importance of conserving open space and agricultural lands as community buffers, support for expanding the trail system, a recognized need to plan for larger scale regional parks, and an understanding that operations and maintenance staff capacity has to scale proportionally to any expansion of new facilities, programs, or properties as part of the town's post portfolio. And all of this input informed the development of 12 overarching goals, supported by 68 specific actions for how to achieve those goals. So I will highlight some of the big moves that this plan suggests over the next few minutes, and including highlighting the Parks and Open Space Recommendations map and the proposed trails map. So one of the significant things that this plan does is propose either revised or new typologies for parks, open space, and trails. The town has used classification categories for parks and trails for quite some time, but they have not always been clearly defined. And so this plan takes the important step of providing park and trail and open space typologies in order to set mutual expectations between the town, the development community, and residents, so that there is a shared understanding of the look, the scale, the function, the types of amenities that can be expected in different types of parks, as well as the management of those types of facilities. So for parks, we did not change the park typology categories. However, what we did was right size the acreages and other features of each park type to be more consistent with the town's current inventory. We also added regional parks as the largest potential park unit in the system. And again, importantly, provided detail and definition on the expected function of each of these types of parks, the minimum standards, service areas, the quantity and density of amenities, as well as long-term ownership and maintenance responsibility. so that there's a baseline of what is expected of developers when they are constructing parks in the town of Mead. So this helps provide standardization across the system without prescribing so much detail that every park is the same. Open space is a very widely interpreted term, and so defining open space typologies within the plan helps make it clear what we mean when we say open space. And so there are 3 types of open space categories proposed in the plan. And all 3 of those can serve as buffers between adjacent municipalities and the town of Mead or between neighborhoods. The habitat preservation and agricultural preservation open space types are those larger scale landscapes. And while green belts and natural areas are smaller scale, those are the types of open space lands you could expect a developer to provide as part of their project. So you'll see these larger scale park and open space types represented on the Parks and Open Space Planning Recommendations map shown here on the slide. This is a map that serves as a tool for town staff to leverage as new developments are proposed within the town of Mead to ensure that those developers are providing adequate parkland and open space for residents. So this map visually communicates a potential future PROST system for the town. And that includes identifying high conservation value open space along waterways. Those are the green shaded areas on the map, as well as potential community buffer open space to the north and to the west of the town boundaries that coincides with areas of prime agricultural land. And the map also proposes general areas where new development, should it come into the town or be developed, would be required to construct parks as part of their project. And then finally, the town's existing community parks are identified as locations for new amenities, and those are identified on the little orange dot that you see there on the map. So these proposed improvements shown here represent projects that the town may lead, as well as projects that future development may lead. And together they present an aspirational picture of what a future PROST system could look like in the town of Mead. So in other words, this map is about communicating the possibilities and the expectations rather than absolute certainties. All right, let's talk trails. So like parks, the plan carries forward 3 trail types that exist in the town system today, but we added clarity to the design specifications, the function, and the amenities for regional trails, local trails, and natural surface trails. The proposed trails map identifies approximately 62 miles of new regional trails. Those are represented by dashed lines on the map, and those are identified in 2 categories, primary and secondary. So primary trails make up 23 miles of the proposed system, and they represent more near-term projects that have an implementation horizon of 10 to 20 years. Those are trails that are most likely to be constructed within public right-of-way. So they have, an easier path to becoming implemented. They also offer significant active transportation benefits. Secondary trails comprise 39 miles of future trails with an implementation expectation beyond 20 years. And those are trails that offer more of a recreational experience. Many of them are located within the town's planning influence area, so outside of the corporate limits. And therefore, they would require greater participation from future landowners to realize. So it's important to note when looking at this map, as well as the previous map I showed, that these proposed trails are conceptual, and so the exact alignments are subject to collaboration with a range of partners depending on the project. And that collaboration comes sort of as the next stage of trail development. Once the project is chosen to move forward, the pre-development design process would require additional feasibility and analysis. We took a closer look at 3 specific trail projects within the town identified by the stars on the map. And those are specific projects that represent a significant opportunity to make a big impact on connectivity because they address either a highly constrained environment for trail development, or they would serve to connect existing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in the town that's currently interrupted by a roadway. So those 3 projects are on the priority projects list I'll highlight at the end of the presentation. Not planning to go into detail tonight unless you all would like to discuss those, but just wanted to make you aware of those. And so shifting into implementation and what it looks like to realize the projects and recommendations of this plan. So first I'll cover operations and staffing. The plan evaluated the town's PROST-related staffing levels against national and local benchmarks, best practice standards, and with input from department heads to understand current staff capacity relative to current demand and workload. So the key takeaway for this is that the town is currently adequately staffed when it comes to PROST. However, any additional programs or system expansion, as I mentioned, would require hiring additional staff to support that. And so as programs, events, additional parkland, or as new trails are constructed, the staffing should proportionally increase to support that. The plan does identify a couple of specific positions that are more likely to have near-term hiring need based on known demand for programs. And those include adult programming and adaptive recreation. So again, if new programs are added, additional staff would be required to meet that demand. All right, shifting from operational to capital project considerations. Start with a quick projection of funding. So capital improvements for PROST projects are typically funded through a combination of sources shown in this table, and that exact combination and the amount of funding each year varies. And that is because some of the funding sources are shared across the town's departments. So some of the sources that you see listed here are exclusively dedicated to PROST, such as the Park and Open Space Impact Fees, the Conservation Trust Fund fee, allocations. But then other sources, and two of the more significant ones, are shared across departments. They can be used for a variety of projects. Those are the Capital Improvement Fund and the Municipal Facilities Impact Fee Fund. So just a caveat there that this is not meant to be representative of funding that is exclusively projected for PROST for the next 10 years. However, based on an assumption of stable funding for each of these sources over the next 10 years, potential available funding for PROST projects for the next decade could be approximately $20.5 million. Again, that's just what is anticipated that could be available. It doesn't take into consideration grant funding either, as that's pretty difficult to project. But it does reflect what the town could allocate to PROST capital projects based on current funding. That funding will need to cover anticipated life cycle replacement costs for the existing system that the town already has in place over the next 10 years as well. And that's estimated to be approximately $9 million. And so we've developed 4 different capital improvement scenarios for potential capital development related to PROST in the plan. Again, that $9 million investment in maintaining your existing system, keeping up with life cycle replacement over the next decade, really doesn't represent much of a change from current practice. The town has done a very good job of keeping up with life cycle replacement, and so that scenario really just represents continuing to replace assets as they age out. So estimating approximately 30% of the system being replaced in 10 years. The next step up from that in the capital improvement scenarios is the improvement scenario. So that's shown in yellow, it's center left on the slide. And this scenario is, again, in addition to keeping up with life cycle replacements of the existing system, this scenario is aimed at making the most of the town's existing resources and assets. And so this means standardizing amenities across your existing parks, making accessibility upgrades, and strategic investment in amenities that will serve the widest and the broadest range of users. So investment in things like restroom facilities, additional shade, some of those amenities that the majority of all park users can appreciate and benefit from. That scenario doesn't require an expansion of operations or staffing, but it does increase the total asset value that the town is responsible for maintaining. The next step up from that is the expanding the system scenario. And so the system is aimed at expanding the existing system through new features at your existing parks, through new properties as part of a formal open space program, and by strategically constructing new trails. So those projects have more significant costs associated with them, and they typically require additional operational funding and staffing to maintain new facilities and properties. And then finally, the visionary scenario, which is on the far right in the green column of the screen summarized. This is a fiscally unconstrained scenario, but it can help provide policy guidance by illustrating what it would take to meet the ultimate demands and needs of the community, both current and emerging. And those visionary projects can often serve as economic catalysts and help distinguish the town as a premier destination for high quality parks and recreation. However, they are associated with the highest potential costs. And they also require longer timeframes to implement, as well as representing a significant expansion in staffing to support those. So the visionary projects that are identified in this plan include an indoor aquatic facility, a regional park, 10 miles of trails and crossings, and several hundred acres of open space. And additional detail on each of these scenarios is found within the plan and the appendices. Okay, so on the topic of additional funding, the plan also explores several strategies and recommends a few new strategies as those that are best suited for the town of Mead and the goals of this plan. The first four listed here on the slide are really aimed at capturing private investment. The one that I want to highlight tonight, I've presented to you before. This is a potential revenue source proposed in the form of a special option sales and use tax. So in this strategy, revenue bonds are sold and repaid with a sales tax that's dedicated, in this case, specifically for the payment of bonds for the purpose of advancing PROST-related projects. And so the sale of bonds is important in this scenario because it allows the municipality to fund those projects up front and advance the projects more quickly, which, as we know, land costs and construction costs tend to go up every year. So that's something important to keep in mind. Equally important is the fact that both the sales tax and the ability to issue bonds in this scenario require voter approval. And so they have to be approved by a ballot measure. This is a funding strategy that many municipal entities in Colorado depend on, including Windsor and the town of Berthoud, to fund their PROST projects. And in the town of Mead, we've estimated that a 1 cent sales tax would generate approximately $2.6 million in revenue. So even without issuing bonds, after 1 year of collection, that could be used to fund the fee simple purchase of 100 acres of open space, or construction of splash pad, or 2.5 miles of trail. Okay, so I've just given a very quick overview of a lot of projects and actions that are contained in this plan. And so one question that may come to mind is, where do we start? So the plan proposes a framework for establishing priorities out of the projects and the actions identified in this plan. And it proposes 4 overarching categories of criteria to basically evaluate a project's financial viability, whether or not it satisfies an immediate need, how well it is benefit driven or if it is opportunity driven, and provides an opportunity to leverage existing resources or partnership opportunities. And this is a framework that can be used annually as the town develops its work plans and capital improvement. So it's meant to provide a structure for the town to continually, work through that rebalancing of priorities that we know happens every year and even within the year. And these are the criteria that were used and applied to ranking 26 identified projects within the plan. So those top 10 projects that best satisfy the prioritization criteria that align with community preferences and also reflect staff and consultant understanding of the project context, those are presented here on this slide. Those highest scoring priority projects or actions are on the top row, that's in orange. And I'll note that these results may not represent, the final sequencing of how projects are pursued. However, they do represent the best starting point at this time based on the analysis and the public engagement conducted through this planning process. With that, I will happy to answer any questions that you may have about the plan or talk in detail about any elements of this document. Thank you for your time and your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Taylor. Now this is the opportunity for the public to comment for this public hearing. When you're recognized, please state your name and address for the board. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, and we ask that you please adhere to the town's general guidelines. Are there any comments from the public at this time? Please come to the podium.
Don Smith, 325 Main Street. So in a 5-2 vote, as always, pay no attention to the roundabout artwork. Just move forward. No attention to the residents. Erica said there was 3 proposals submitted. I don't know any residents that saw the 3 different artworks. Apparently,
Mr.
Jeremiah's
Smith,
the
we're
only one.
talking about, this is a public hearing for the Trails Master
I
Plan.
thought this was for anything at
No.
this time. Oh, well, I'll be back.
Thank you. Is there anyone here for the public hearing that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees? Okay, do any of the trustees have comments or questions? Trustee Trance, first, go ahead.
Taylor, I need you up.
Go ahead, sir.
Am I to assume that if we pass this resolution tonight, that the trails as you define them, both proposed primary and proposed secondary, are going to be locked in place?
They are not locked in place. This is a planning document. They represent a best approach over the last 16 months to identify where trails would be viable and would best serve the community. Those primary proposed trails projects represent the ones that are likely most viable to pursue. Secondary represent probably a more challenging path to implementation. But as with any plan, it's subject to the steps that come after it and how it's implemented. There are a lot of steps from a line on a map to a trail that's on the ground. So
I need to understand how that happens.
Sure.
How is somebody going to notify this Board of Trustees that they're ready to do proposed secondary Plan A? So give us the opportunity to comment on it. How does that happen?
Sure. So these trails would most likely be implemented primarily either by the town deciding to move forward with leading the development of a project, specifically or especially those that are within a public right of way. So the first element is the element of site control. So if the town is leading a project, the town would need to be able to control the location where that trail is going. In the case of a secondary trail, those will need to require the participation in many cases of a private property owner. So in that scenario, either that property is potentially being developed. This plan gives the town the ability to show this map to a potential developer and say, we have planned for this trail corridor and would like it to be included as part of the development project. So that's one scenario. Those are most likely the most likely scenarios that you could expect.
Okay. I have a concern.
Okay.
And you've been part of this, and so have you, Troy. There's a particular section in there around Mulligan Lake that the community has voiced a very loud opinion on. And I, for one, concur with the community. There is a gun and fish club there and an airstrip. Being a pilot, airstrips and people don't mix well. Guns and people don't mix well. We have asked in the past to either remove or totally reroute that, but as I look in here, it's pretty much routed the same way as we presented it last June or May when we had the public feelings. So I don't see a change. You're going to leave that up to development, which is what I think I heard you guys say at a past meeting. And frankly, I don't trust development. They're going to come in and say, we're going to put this path in here, and they don't much care. They're going to bring it here. But as you have heard many, many times, we can't tell people what to do with their land. And that includes developers. We can tell them we have a plan, we'd like it around. My point is, I think we need to address that particular section of the map now. And I would rather have it not there and then have a developer come in and say, I'd like to put it there. And then I have some control over where it is. But if you showed me now that you can put this path here, That's where I'm going to put it. And that would fly in the face of protecting that community and the rights that they have had around that lake for over 100 years. I'm just not at all comfortable with that. Mulligan Lake, not Mulligan. Well, no, Mulligan
Reservoir,
Mulligan Reservoir, yeah.
not south of 66, right?
No, right. That's where the Gun and Fish Club is as well. So I have a concern there. And I don't know how we're going to resolve that. Like I said, if it were up to me, I'd just as soon take that particular section, totally remove it. And then when the time comes, which could be 5, 10, 15 years from now, and whoever's on the board at that time, because it won't be me, then they can open it up and discuss it at that time. I just get concerned that once you put it down on paper, that's pretty much where it stays. We can argue it and debate it all day long, but that's what you guys approved 20 years ago, so we're going to go with it. So that's my concern, and I'm open to listen to any kind of discussion about that that will make me feel more comfortable.
Okay, yeah, I can also respond.
So you might recall back on June 8th, I did a small presentation about kind of where the master plan was at that point, and then also the process that we had gone through, or Taylor had primarily gone through with the neighbors and public feedback and open houses and things like that, intercept events on that specific portion. And you may recall that it was right up against the boundaries of the shore going around it. After one iteration, it was pulled back significantly to show that it was not intended to be on the shore, but rather several hundred feet off is what you would do, you would see in that layout. And then the final iteration actually removed an entire section out of that route going to the north by the airstrip. And so the idea behind that trails master plan, or not the ideal, but the intent and how it'll be implemented, is that those are conceptual layouts. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to topography, wildlife, water table, development at the time, all those things on where that trail or alignment actually goes. And part of that process is a preliminary plat, as you're well aware. So once it's annexed into the town, if someone, whether it's a property owner or a developer or a contract purchaser, wants to take that project through the development project, they're going to be going through zoning, annexation zoning. In this case, they would be doing a preliminary plat. And at that point, that would come before the Planning Commission, the Board of Trustees, as a public hearing. And so that's where it'll get in front of staff first, and we'll try and, alleviate any of those concerns. But at those public hearings, that's when there's approval criteria that are listed out in our land use code. And against those approval criteria, you can apply the specifics of that location, of the adjacencies, of the terrain, all of those specifics for that project, and apply them at that time. And so it's not locked in by any means. It's just a general layout. That trail could go in the middle of the neighborhood. It could go through a 500 wide strip of open space. That'll come down to that process. That's part of the subdivision and plating process.
That's comforting. With all due respect, this is something that could possibly happen 10, 15 years from now. So this is not the group that's going to be discussing this thing. There's going to be some new group out there. And my concern is that this gets lost in the shuffle. Okay, so I don't know how to protect that. But that's my concern. And I'm pretty sure that 10, 15 years from now, that gun club will still be there. They've been here 100 years already. I'm pretty sure they'll be there another 10 years, 15 years. And I don't want this to be an issue or an open sore when that comes up at the time that the new board, and I don't know how many of you will be here to say, oh yeah, I remember we had that discussion. It'll be a whole new discussion. And that's why when I see it down on a piece of paper as a dotted line, 15 years from now, that's what I see. I don't know that there have been discussions that says we're going to move it this, we're not going to do that, we're going to jump here, we're going to do that. I don't see any or hear any of those discussions. I see a dotted line on a piece of paper. And that's where I start with, okay? I'm not trying to be ugly about it. I just want you to understand my concern and representing that community, because I totally agree that there is some degree of risk in that community. And I want to make sure that things happen and happen correctly. One for the town, two for the community. Okay, so you guys have to assure me that that's going to happen. I don't know how you're going to do that, but because it's such a long-term project, it's not something that's going to happen next year. You know, 10, 15 years from now, so many things will change. But that's my concern. I voiced it. I don't know that there is an answer to my question. Even if you took it out, I don't know if that made a difference. But I think it was just important that it gets voiced again. And it's an important thing to that community. Thank you.
If I may add one, maybe bit of assurance is as part of the appendices of the plan, there's a complete public comment record and public engagement summary that does include that. So if folks in the future see this recording and read the appendices, please do so. Thank you.
Also, the constituents that you are talking about, when it is a preliminary plat, those will be public hearings. So at that point, whoever is interested in 10 to 15 years or sometime in the future will be able to comment on those processes.
Okay, any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any comments or questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I saw that, of course, they recommended a lot of kind of code updates in this as far as, you know, wording on size of trails and other things. Is all of this going to make it into the update we're currently working on? Has this already kind of been being started to be integrated into it, and this is it's gonna go in now, or is this gonna get delayed?
It's going in, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, great. And then one of the things that I really liked about the plan is I know we have a lot of developers that do the pocket parks and the trails for us, basically, when we do a development. And one of the things that I think this plan really called out that I guess I hadn't really put my finger on was that, yeah, they build the trail, but they don't do any real actual quote unquote amenities on the trail. There's never a bench. There's never a certain number of trees for shade. There's never a spot for people to stop and sit and enjoy the trail. And I thought, huh, that's so true. I mean, yes, the trail is there, but we haven't really made the developer add anything to it to make it more desirable of a trail to walk on and to utilize. So I really hope that all of that gets integrated into the code and that it's not just them slapping down a piece of concrete and calling it good. I do like the idea of adding more benches, water stations, whatever it is, especially not on our dime and on the developers' dimes. So I guess that's it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to close the comments and questions at this time. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Taylor, for being here tonight and for the many months of work on this. Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution number 46-R-2026? It's adopting the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 46R-2026, a resolution of the town of Mead, Colorado, adopting the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan.
I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Trustee Schranz,
Yes.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Motion carries. This public hearing is now closed at 8:14. We'll move on to our last public comment. We have no further general business, so we will follow the same guidelines previously stated. We'll call on individuals in the order which they have signed in. And again, I ask all speakers and audience members to treat one another with respect and dignity. Melissa, did anybody sign in for this second public comment
No, they did not.
Okay. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees?
All right. Back to the roundabouts. You know, you guys can like that artwork. That's great. I don't think any of the residents really knew what you guys are going to put up there. It's amazing to me how she said there was 3 submittals and we end up with that. And I don't know anybody that saw that stuff, but you guys just picked it and go with it. Jeremiah apparently did some research, had some people come up to him. Cost was, I don't even know what the cost is, but I'm going to guess pretty extravagant. Yet we still don't got anything in the park over there at Ames for kids. And don't forget, we got 2 more roundabouts she spent $635,000 on for upgrade from concrete. Even though the roundabouts coming off of the freeway right here are going to be asphalt, we spent $635,000 for the roundabouts over there on 9.5. I'm curious what we're going to put in those because Helen says, you know, we got to have something in the middle. We're going to have a T-bone. Heaven knows I can't count the roundabouts I've been in that don't got something in the middle, but it's amazing how we just move forward and it's just the 5 of you's opinion. It's no residents. You're supposed to represent us. And then, of course, we got these signs out there that look like the badge on Star Trek that are coming apart. I don't know if any of you noticed the bracing on them. I mean, did you guys vote for that too? I hear they were pretty expensive too. So, you know, it's amazing how you guys represent us, but we really don't got an opinion. You just come up with what we want. I didn't like that stuff at all. I mean, it's going to be 2 big gaudy ass metal things out there, and I don't even know what we're paying for them, but I don't know anybody that knows anything about them other than the 5 of you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the Board of Trustees tonight? All right, we'll move on to elected official reports. Any town trustees would like to bring up anything? Trustee Hagan and then Trustee Cartwright.
Couple things here. I wanted to thank Manny with the town staff. He the milling contractor ran into my masonry mailbox and damaged my driveway, so he was really diligent in helping that get fixed, and I appreciated that. I want to congratulate Mary on a clean audit. I do agree that I wish we would have got some public input on the roundabout art. That would have been a pretty, maybe community, you know, kind of cohesion type thing to try to get some input on that stuff. And then finally on the financial report, when I looked over at Marcus about not having any potential liabilities for litigation, you didn't say anything, but I'm pretty sure we had in 2025 litigation liability. Should that not have been on there because there was a claim?
We really haven't had any investigating other than the attorney's fees that have been expended. They've been covered by our insurer and fees that were charged by my office. We haven't had any liabilities.
I'm sorry, I actually thought it was a liability for the potential liability of the legal claim itself.
There's no potential liability in 2025.
The claim was made though, right?
I'm sorry?
The claim was already filed in 2025.
Yes, but the court hasn't ruled on any liability.
So it just makes it a potential liability. It doesn't make it a liability.
But it's not a potential liability in 2025. If there's
it was as part of the audit though.
If there's an adverse ruling against the town, it would be a liability in 2026 or 2027 to be determined, right? But not in 2025.
The nuance is potential liability, whether you're supposed to report that or not.
We did report it. It was reported in a letter to the auditor. It was disclosed.
What the just didn't make the report.
Right. Because we did disclose it to the auditor.
I can confirm that. The auditor does a second request on potential liability within 14 days of the audit. That's the requirement. And so that request was made and responded to within 14 days. And the question is potential liability, but also it reflects like, is it significant? Is it significant for our audited financial reports? And so there was a response from Marcus's firm about, there was a lawsuit, a pending lawsuit, right, in Weld County District Court. And it was responded that that does exist and what the potential liability is. And then the auditors decide if it makes their report or not. So that could be a question to Dimitri, why I didn't make the report, but my guess is they didn't feel it was significant enough to report. It was disclosed.
Yeah, that was all.
Trustee Cartwright.
Over the weekend, I brought this to Helen's attention. I think she brought it also to Erica and Lorelei, but there was a sprinkler that was going off in one of the parks, and there seems to be no way to contact the town when the town is closed or after hours, even for non-emergency. The person made the comment that they had contacted the non-emergency dispatch, who said we have no control over that and let it go. So I asked if you could maybe just address that so that we can get some information out to our constituents.
So I'm unaware of the call coming in. That is the right way to go, is to that non-emergent number. Chief has been kind of busy over the last couple days, especially today. We had 2 very significant incidents. He didn't go back and check, and to me, I think it could have been something that was a miscommunication. But to be fair, Erica is working on, with our new landscape people, we're working on some plans, one of which would be no sprinklers would be on at all on the weekends. And we also have another idea where we may start non-emergent calls like that going through our community center, because it's staffed like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when I heard it, I think it's significant, but again, I'm not sure social media, and I'm not suggesting that anybody did or didn't do anything, but sometimes even going through an operator, something doesn't, something gets disconnected. So, but we are looking at it. We're looking at some other ways that information like that could come in. It's really hard, though, to ask a citizen to decide, is this a crime? Is this a nuisance? So that's why we use that non-emergent number in general, but we're happy to look at other ways that things could be resolved. I know we were able to remotely turn the water off because we have that ability. But we'll get better.
Anything else? Mayor Pro Tem Harris, do you have any questions or comments during this time?
No.
Okay. I wanted to just point out that we had a great grand opening ribbon cutting for the Blushing Raven, our brand new bookstore that happened on Saturday, and had a great time. And it was, even though it was really hot out, we had some vendors, and it was wonderful to welcome a new business downtown. Tomorrow I get to speak at the 40th anniversary of the OmniTracks. I thought that was very, very neat that they asked me to come and speak and welcome, on behalf of the town of Mead, to go and just say thank you for all the partnership. Of course, I chaired the Dr. Cog meeting on Wednesday, and we have several meetings during that day. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Hagan,
Yes.
Trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris,
Yes.
Trustee Schranz,
Yes.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Cartwright,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes, the July 13th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is now adjourned, at 8:24. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Please drive safely home, and hopefully it'll cool down soon.
I think it's great. Roast.
Yeah.
Unanimously.